Hey badasses, and welcome to this video about the cover letter, specifically 4 cover letter hacks that you can use to elevate your cover letter and to really stand out from the crowd. Because if you know anything about the badass methodology when it comes to landing jobs at some of the biggest banks, consultancies, beauty companies, fashion companies, tech companies in the world, like the badass clients do, then you will know that a cover letter is key. And it's key because it's a completely different piece of marketing collateral to your resume. What's a real shame is when people use their cover letter just to rehash their resume. Oh, that is just such a waste of precious real estate. You can do so much more with your cover letter than that. And we're going to talk about some of the things you can be doing in this video because whew, it is so powerful. I've seen time and time again through my 10-year career in HR and recruiting, working in top tier companies, multinationals, Fortune 500s, and working with the hiring managers and the decision makers in those companies. Cover letters count. And when it gets down to those final few candidates and you're really trying to make that hiring decision, you'll often go back to their original application and look at the passion, the why, the drive, that hunger, that enthusiasm for the role that comes through in the cover letter. So it's just so important. So really excited to dive into that today. But just before I get started, if you are job hunting right now and you haven't seen my epic free 1 hour plus resume masterclass, what are you doing?
What are you doing, dog?
Get all over that. It is some of my best content all in one place about resumes. It is so generous. It is so value packed. It's called 5 Keys to Badass Your Resume so that you can land more job offers, and you can find it at badasscareers.com/badass masterclass. But for now, let's get back to cover letters and we'll talk about how you can make yours stand out from the crowd and get generating those interview offers. So tip number 1 is to go beyond your resume. At the end of the day, your resume can only fit so much information on it. Already, your resume is not your whole life story. Already, your resume is a tailored selection of key experiences, accomplishments, and moments that are going to make a difference in this role. And so it's already tight, succinct, and there's not a lot of detail on there, but it's that way for a reason, and that's the right way to do a compelling resume, for sure. However, the cover letter gives you a bit more room to play and to add a bit of context. And so when I say go beyond the resume, I want you to ask yourself, how can you tell a story? How can you give me context? How can you tell me about your why? What gets you out of bed in the morning? How do you do things differently? How do you add value? How are you going to add value to this company? And do you have a special connection to the company in any way? Do you share the same mission or values? All of this kind of information is very important to pull through in the cover letter. Again, it's a real waste of real estate if you're going to use your cover letter as another place to just rehash and repeat what you've already put on your resume. You can pick out things from your resume to highlight, but I want to know more about those accomplishments. I want to know more about you. And I hear job seekers say all the time, like,
how can they get to know me just off one piece of paper?
Talking about the resume, how can you look at some text, some information on a piece of paper and think that you have any idea of what it would be like to work with me? But this is why the cover letter is so important, because it gives you an opportunity to get that message across.
Yep. Yes.
I want to give you a couple of examples here. This is an example of a section of a cover letter where someone's really been able to express their core convictions and beliefs, for example. At my core, I am a curious, analytical, and passionate learner and ideator. I have 3 years of experience designing disruptive business strategies rooted in strong analytical frameworks, and I believe every set of data is a story waiting to be told. I have a deep understanding of how vast amounts of data can be utilized to make lives easier and business strategies stronger. In my most recent role at Confidential E-commerce, I was challenged to manage some of the biggest e-commerce businesses in the country, each driving over 50 million annually. This required a combination of innovative strategic thinking, constant research to strengthen market intuition, and an eye for identifying efficiencies through process improvement, which led me to gain an invaluable perspective on the digital landscape. So you see here in this example, this person isn't saying, I'm a team player, I'm a good communicator, and I'm good at my job. You can tell that this person knows what they're doing. That's proving that they can do the job through the stories that they're telling. But not only this, but they elevate that presence in the cover letter by talking about what they believe to be true. I believe that every set of data is a story waiting to be told. That is so powerful. That's human. That is the kind of stuff that recruiters and the hiring manager are going to connect with. In this next example, the person uses the cover letter as an opportunity to connect between who they are and what matters to them as a person and the mission of the company, just to explain why it would be that perfect fit for the two of them to work together. As someone who has lived and worked overseas for almost 10 years, traveling extensively along the way, I can definitely relate to being as travel obsessed as your typical trip.com employee. However, what gets me really fired up about your localization project manager EMEA role is being part of a bigger mission to reignite the travel industry, giving people their sense of adventure back and leveraging the power of Trip.com app to connect with customers in their own native language in a culturally relevant way through smart and user-centric localization. So this is what, like 3 sentences, and in here you've got the person's personal background and story. They're a big traveler, they relate to Trip.com. By the way, Trip.com allows you to book travel online. They relate to the typical Trip.com employee. So they know your customer, they are your customer. And so of course they're going to be able to keep your customer, who's a business's top priority, at the center of everything that they do. Not only this, but they're on a bigger mission. They have a why that's about reigniting the travel industry that they love so much. And that's why they want to contribute to this industry as a whole. And we know as well that they find a lot of joy in the role itself because it's all about translating the websites so that people can navigate that website in a really culturally relevant way that makes sense to them. So all of this combined, it's about 3 sentences, and you can just see that enthusiasm, that connection oozing out of the page. And that is the start of a killer cover letter.
Boom.
Because that screams, not only do I want this and I can do this, but I am going to roll up my sleeves and go into battle with you if you need me, because this matters to me. I want to be here. It's connected to my bigger why. Tip number 2 when it comes to elevating your cover letter and really making the most of the strategic personal branding asset of yours is to give me context to your experiences. So what I mean by this is I don't just want you to highlight the most relevant achievements and accomplishments you can possibly think of from your resume in your cover letter, but I want you to give me a little bit more context around them. Because as impressive and shiny and they're all quantified and they're looking great and you've really made them impact driven, as great as they are on your resume, it's still a fantastic opportunity to highlight a little bit more about you and the way you think, the way you perceive the world, the way you approach complex challenges, and the way you get results. This is going to help for that team fit, that kind of personal fit element that recruiters so often look for. So when you're wanting to sprinkle in a little bit more insight into the way you work, you can try thinking about these kinds of questions. If you take one of the accomplishments that you've highlighted in response to the job description and that you've put front and center on your resume, if you take some of those that you're most proud of, what approach specifically did you take to make that happen? What role did you play? What is it about the way you do your career? What is it about the way that you collaborate with others? What is it about the skill set that you have perhaps? What is it about you? What do you bring to the table that allowed that to happen? That created the environment or facilitated the results that you got on your resume. And when you're thinking about the approach that you take, you can also ask yourself, why that approach? What were the decision points that led me to choosing that specific approach? Because that ability to discern between 2 different potential options or pathways to go down could also be really interesting to highlight depending on the example as well. Also looking at some of your top accomplishments or career stories that you've already highlighted over on your resume, I want you to ask yourself, did you experience any significant challenges, hurdles, roadblocks when it came to that? And if so, how did you overcome those? That's a really exciting story to tell. Human beings love stories. They're very memorable And we particularly love a redemption story where there was something in the way and something blocking us and we didn't know how we were going to navigate it, and we managed to push through and win in the end regardless. You could also ask yourself, what is it about your personality? What is it about your passion? What is it about your work ethic? Or any other characteristic that made you especially good at getting this job done. Now, I'm not asking you to tell them lengthy stories, but you can absolutely weave in a bit more context and things that are going to be quite striking and memorable that are going to bring those accomplishments on your resume to life here. Now, as always, I highly recommend here that you have done your analysis, you've done your work for the job description, and you've really analyzed it and drawn out the key requirements of the company. And then you've drawn out the stories that most align to these so that you can choose them strategically. And then when you draw them out as well, you're going to want to highlight some of those key words you find in the job description that the hiring manager, that the company would actually use, so that it really stands out and looks like a good fit too. Speaking of fit, let's jump into point number 3, which is all about coming across as that perfect team and culture fit. And that is to write in the company's voice. Before you get in the zone and tailor your resume and write that cover letter, I really want you to spend just 15 minutes, 20 minutes absorbing the company. Okay, and what I mean by this is reading their website, looking at the language that they use, reading their captions on social media, consuming videos of the senior leaders in the company, and so on and so forth. Get immersed into their world. Not only is this great to match the keywords and the tone of voice, but it will also allow you to come across naturally as someone who speaks their language and gets it. Tip number 4 is never apologize for missing experience. I've seen this time and time again where in cover letters people will say something like, despite limited experience in XYZ, or you may be wondering why a lawyer is applying for your human resources position, or whatever that looks like. Just like your resume, every sentence on this document matters, and you do not want to spend precious time in real estate drawing attention to things you don't have. That is not the way to do it. You want this whole application to be strengths first. You want it to be leading with the things you do have, not those few bullet points that you don't have. So ditch that, leave that at the door. That is not welcome on a badass cover letter. Instead, you're going to want to translate your skills over for the recruiter. If you have certain gaps in your experience where it's not completely obvious, this is your chance to say, my experience in XYZ allows me to therefore, and then, project that forward onto the new job description and explain how your experience or a specific turning point for you or an accomplishment that you had, how does that translate over to the new job? That's what you want to play the role of doing, is translating that experience and those skills and bridging the gaps, any gaps, without actually directly identifying them. You're actually saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm absolutely agile and capable of adapting and doing that. Like, you're not even bringing up the fact you haven't done it before. It's just you have the core competencies and the base skill set that would allow you to do something similar. Great, friends. So I hope that you have enjoyed this content on cover letter writing. Again, if you're job seeking right now and you haven't checked out my epic resume masterclass, what are you doing? It's over 1 hour of the best content and strategies and tips I have on resumes. It's called 5 Keys to Badass Your Resume so you can land more job offers. You can find it at badasscareers.com/badassmasterclass. So I will see you over there. And otherwise, if we're not friends yet over on Instagram, come and find me at Badass Careers and say hi, send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you. And otherwise, I'll check out your comments down below as well to see what you thought of the video. As always, stay badass, and I'll see you here next time on the Badass Careers YouTube channel. Bye!